The National Association for Gun Rights and an Albuquerque resident are suing New Mexico's governor over an emergency order that bans firearms from being carried in public. The governor called the ban a necessary response to gun violence after an 11-year-old boy was shot and killed as he and his family left a minor league baseball game last week. Police identified the shooting as a road rage incident. The emergency order would temporarily suspend open and concealed carry of firearms in Albuquerque and the surrounding county for 30 days. People who violate the civil order will also face fines. Some, however, are criticizing the move and even calling for the governor to be impeached. Joining me now to talk about the legality of this, trial attorney and legal analyst Brian Claypool. Brian, thank you. Is the governor within her legal right to issue this change?
Hey, Marty, great to be back with you. I don't think Governor Grisham is within her rights to issue this executive order. And just so your viewers know what an executive order is, that's basically a governor or, for example, a president. I know that President Trump and current President Biden have issued a lot of what's called executive orders, where they are just deciding to basically create a new law and ignore an existing law. There is an existing law in New Mexico that allows people to carry an armed weapon as long as it is not concealed, Marnie. That's the existing law. Now, Governor Grisham wants to come in and say, okay, I'm gonna throw out that law for 30 days and institute this ban. But the problem with that is it arguably violates the Second Amendment right to bear arms. And also, if you do a deep dive on this, Marnie, I'm not sure the science or the data supports this kind of executive order. And what I mean by that is, you mentioned one of the shootings was an 11-year-old boy at a Little League baseball game. He was shot as a result of road rage. The two other shootings that Governor Grisham is referring to is a 13-year-old girl that was killed by a 14-year-old boy. He had his father's gun. And then there was another 11-year-old girl that was, I'm sorry, a 5-year-old girl that was killed by a bunch of teenagers that stole a couple cars and ran up and shot her in a mobile home. That this to me is more an issue of teenagers, parenting, and making sure that guns don't get into the hands of the wrong people.
And looking at some of the numbers, Brian, as of last Friday, there were 76 homicide victims in the city of Albuquerque. That's a decrease from 93 victims that were listed this time last year. According to The Hill, in their lawsuit, the gun rights group pointed to the Supreme Court's decision in New York State, the Rifle and Pistol Association versus Bruen. Can you talk about that case and why it might be significant here?
Yeah, so the U.S. Supreme Court case you're referring to states a precedent that if you want to issue what she's doing here, an executive order, there has to be a link or a nexus to the history of that city. And by history of that city, it means that there is a link to increasing violence, right? There's got to be some connection between this new temporary ban and like you're referencing, that is there and also an increase in homicides and violence within that city. There's got to be a link. And here, based on the statistic you've shown, based on the type of crimes we're talking about here, there is no real link to this temporary ban on carrying weapons and the type of crime that's taking place. And look, Marty, you know, I'm a victim of gun violence. I survived the Las Vegas shooting. I saw people shot and killed, thought I was going to die. And for the first year or so after the shooting, I was all about, okay, let's try to ban weapons, limit weapons, get an assault weapon ban. But over the years, the deeper I've dug in, I think this is more of an issue from attacking within our culture. For example, these red flag laws. I mean, Grisham has a red flag law. That's good. So why is she doing this ban? Red flag law allows law enforcement to go in on short notice to get guns from people who pose a risk of danger to themselves or others. That's a good idea. She's requiring intensive background checks, not allowing people that have domestic violence convictions to get access to guns. That's a good idea. She's requiring cities in New Mexico to keep track of people who are in hospitals and have been subject to gun violence to see what's happening. and what's causing it, that's a good idea. But issuing a temporary gun ban, is not a good idea, and it violates the Second Amendment.
Yeah, she has a lot of things in place. Maybe is feeling as though it doesn't go far enough. Always good to see you, Brian Claypool. Thank you.
You bet. Thanks, Marnie.